If you need motivation to study Mandarin, then your system is broken. I've spoken Mandarin on national Chinese TV in front of 1.4 billion people, and that did not happen because I felt inspired and motivated every day. It happened because I built a frictionless system that made studying Mandarin automatic. And that's exactly what I want to show you today. You see, the best way for you to learn Mandarin is the one with the least friction. Let me explain it with nothing more than this set of dumbbells. For years, I've tried to go to the gym consistently with some success. On paper, it's really simple. I walk there, decide what to train, wait for the equipment to be available, walk back home, all done. Now, in theory, none of this is that hard, right? But in reality, every single step of that process adds friction. So I might end up asking myself questions like, do I really want to walk 15 minutes in the rain today? Is it going to be so packed that it's going to take me ages to wait for the equipment? What should I train today? Where should I get changed before going to the gym? So each problem alone is easy and probably doesn't need my medical degree or, my potential PhD to solve this. But together, now here's where the problem comes. It may just create enough resistance that my brain convinces me to just skip the gym session entirely. And that happens even if I'm motivated and I like to think of myself as a pretty disciplined person. So eventually I bought a set of dumbbells and started working out in my lounge first thing in the morning with follow along YouTube videos. This was an absolute game changer. Now let me explain to you through the lens of friction why this works and how we can do exactly the same thing with our Mandarin learning. So now there's no commutes to the gym, no planning, no waiting, no thinking. It just becomes seamless. All that I do is I get up in the morning, find my dumbbells, which I've left in a really obvious place in the middle of my lounge, so I can't miss them. So I can't use that as an excuse. Get up the video, press play, and off we go. And guess what happened? I went from working out 3 or 4 times a week on and off to working out 6 times a week consistently. And that's not because I became more disciplined overnight. Instead, it's because I removed all the friction that was stopping me working out. Now, is this method the perfect optimized method to maximize muscle gain for me? No, obviously not. But is it the best system and the best method of working out for my health? Yes. Why? Because I'm actually consistent with it. I actually do it. See, with Mandarin learning, it's exactly the same. Us Mandarin learners create loads of systems and methods that add just so much decision fatigue and so much friction that we don't actually follow through on our plan. If your system requires constant decisions, for example, what should I study today? What podcast should I use? Is this the right level for me? Should I do some flashcards or should I learn some new vocabulary? Is this resource good enough? Should I try this new app that everyone's talking about? If it requires loads of decisions like this, well, each decision alone is quite small, but together they create resistance, they create friction. And resistance and friction, that absolutely kills consistency. So here's the big one for you guys. You don't quit Mandarin or study Mandarin inconsistently because you're not disciplined or not motivated enough. It's because Mandarin starts to feel inconvenient. And why does it feel inconvenient? Because of the friction. That's why the best way of you learning Mandarin is the one with the absolute least friction. So now, after learning Mandarin for 5 years, what have I learned? Instead of optimizing for perfection and, maximum efficiency as I used to, I instead optimize for ease so I can keep at it for years and years and years. Here's exactly what that looks like. Number 1, I download podcasts in advance. This was an absolute game changer. I subscribe to loads and loads of Mandarin podcasts and just turn on auto downloads. And what this means is all of these podcasts that I'm subscribed to, they just download in advance when I'm not thinking about it on my phone. So every time I go to listen, when I go out the door to start heading to the lab, I don't have to think about what podcasts I've got to listen to. I just open it up and whatever comes up on there, I'll just listen to. There'll already be tons ready to go. So that means no searching, no deciding, no thinking. Just open my phone, press play, and that's it. The easier it is to start something, the more often you'll start. Okay, number 2, I built a watch later goldmine on YouTube. On YouTube, I aggressively add videos that I think look quite cool to my watch later list so that I can watch them to learn Mandarin. So when I sit down to go and watch YouTube videos to practice my Mandarin, I don't have to think about it. I don't search. I don't, have to think really hard about what I'm actually going to watch. I don't look for random stuff. I just open the list and there'll already be a ton of videos ready to go. It's exactly the same as how I just leave the dumbbells in my lounge really visible so that they're ready and impossible to ignore. Number 3, I eliminated material anxiety. This one's huge. People obsess over, is this too easy? Is this too hard? Is this too heavily accented for me to learn proper standard Mandarin? Is this too slang heavy, too boring? Is this the optimal input for my level? The wrong accent? These tons and tons of decisions here. Decisions equal decision fatigue equals friction. This whole mental evaluation process creates friction, which is actually going to stop you starting. So here's what I want to tell you. Input is input. You just press play. And if it's the wrong level, well, swap to something else that's already on your auto-downloaded podcast list or your watch later goldmine if you've been following along with the last 2 steps. The takeaway point from this lesson that I want to tell you is that doing and adapting is the best way to learn Mandarin. Trying stuff and just doing as much as you can. Overthinking and not starting, that is the worst way of learning Mandarin and will not get you anywhere. In my experience, the people who do well in language learning are the doers, not the overthinkers. So don't think too much, just get started. Number 4, here is the big one, flashcards. I'm going to admit something to you guys here, because once I've reached an advanced level in Mandarin, when I encounter new words, it's a bit rarer, right? And for that, I need some very nuanced, good example sentences. So what did I used to do? Well, I used to spend absolute hours finding these new words, sticking them all into AI, sieving through the various example sentences that they've given me, and it took ages. I'll then edit them, copy them into Anki, make close deletions. Now, let me tell you this obviously worked quite well, right? I really do think this has helped my Mandarin, but man, was it time consuming. And I'll be honest with you, recently life's been really getting to me. The pressure of my PhD is greater than ever. I've got more students in the lab to look after. The number of chunking Chinese students is growing faster than ever. And now I've got a blog, I've got YouTube, I've got the email newsletter. I no longer have the mental capacity to sit down and spend hours having an argument with AI about which is the best sentence to use for my flashcards. I just can't brute force myself through making these flashcards anymore. So I asked myself, where's the friction? Well, the friction is obvious. The friction is at the flashcard creation process, like the generation of a flashcard. So I reduced it. As much as I could. Now I automate flashcard generation as much as possible with my Anki card generator, which you can check out in the link in the description below. Basically, I take a list of single words, plug it in, and it will generate a load of flashcards for me that I have to that I can choose what type of flashcard it is and whatnot. And that's all in a fraction of the time that I used to spend on making flashcards. So again, is it perfect? No, probably not. But I'm spending more time enjoying Mandarin and less time keyboard crunching and arguing with AI. And that's the point. This is also why my own chunking Chinese program, on behalf of my students, decided to bite the bullet and sat down and made 800 flashcards for this program. It took me months, and all with native audio. Why? Because I knew that if I kept telling my students to make the flashcards themselves, half of them probably wouldn't do it. Not because they're not disciplined, not because they're not motivated, and not because they don't want to learn Mandarin, but just because of the amount of friction to do that is huge. And friction is really powerful, and it gets the better of us, including me. So let me put it this way, with regards to anything you're doing with your Mandarin learning, if the friction is high, the amount of motivation you need is huge, and you'll likely be inconsistent. The lower the friction is, the easier it is to stay consistent, and the easier it is to just get started and stick at something. So the takeaway point is this: if you can find a way to lower the friction, you will become more consistent in your language learning. And over a long period of time, that means you will learn faster and you'll make bigger progress as a result of it. So here's what I want you to do. Instead of asking, how can I be more disciplined? What you need to ask yourself is, how can I make it ridiculously easy to start? Once you've done that, you can then start asking yourself, how can I remove as much friction as possible from every step of my Mandarin learning plan? And that's how you go from being inconsistent to studying Mandarin daily without even noticing you're doing it. It's just become part of your life. And as a result, you'll make huge progress. So here are a few simple ways that you can get started with reducing friction with your Mandarin learning. Pre-download at least 10 podcasts so they're all ready to go when you want to listen. Keep a permanent watch later queue. Just keep adding new videos that pop up on your home screen that you think are going to be good for your Mandarin learning into your watch later queue, so you always never have to go searching for videos on YouTube and get lost in a YouTube rabbit hole somewhere. Automate flashcard generation as much as possible. You can use my Anki flashcard generator, which I'd highly recommend. You can also use something like Language Reactor. Another big one, leave headphones visible, or Chinese learning books or resources visible so you just can't ignore them. Attach Mandarin to existing habits. This is called habit stacking. So for example, when you're cooking, you listen to Mandarin. When you're doing the washing up, you listen to Mandarin. Or for example, after you've walked the dog, the next habit is to read in Mandarin for 10 minutes. The whole point is to design your environment so that Mandarin learning happens automatically. I mentioned reducing friction in flashcards, but here's the thing. If your flashcards are poorly designed, no matter how much you reduce the friction, you're just making yourself make them faster, learn them faster, review them faster. But it's not actually going to be that much of a benefit to your learning of Mandarin in general. Reducing the friction isn't going to help much here. And actually, I learned this the hard way. So if you want to learn how to build flashcards that actually work and won't waste your time, then check out this video next, and I'll see you there.